The transport ship settled onto the landing pad with a deep rumble that shook the ground. Hana Kim pressed her face against the small window and looked out at her new home for the next 4 years. The Galactic Military Academy stretched before her like a metal mountain. Tall silver towers reached toward the purple sky of Nexus Prime. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings like metal birds. Hana took a deep breath. She was nervous but excited. At 19 years old, she was one of only 3 humans accepted into the most important military school in the galaxy. Her hands shook a little as she picked up her small bag. Everything she owned fit into one simple backpack. The doors of the transport opened with a hiss. Cool air rushed in carrying strange smells. Hana stepped onto the platform and looked around. Hundreds of alien beings walked across the academy grounds. Some were tall and covered in blue scales. Others had 4 arms and moved like giant spiders. A few had wings and floated above the walkways. Hana had studied about different alien species, but seeing them in person was different. She felt very small and very human. Her black hair and brown eyes seemed plain compared to the colorful creatures around her. She wore the same gray uniform as everyone else, but somehow felt like she stood out. A loud voice boomed across the landing area. "New cadets report to Building 7 for orientation." The voice came from a massive creature with thick red skin and tusks. Hana recognized it as a Vorthon. They were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. Hana followed the crowd of new students. She walked carefully, trying not to bump into anyone. A group of tall blue aliens walked past her, talking in clicks and whistles. They looked down at her with large yellow eyes and seemed amused by her small size. Building 7 was enormous. The ceiling was so high Hana could barely see the top. Hundreds of new cadets filled the main hall. Hana found an empty spot near the back and sat down. The chair was too big for her, so her feet did not touch the floor. Commander Velthos stepped onto the stage. He was the biggest Vorthon Hana had ever seen. His red skin looked like armor and his tusks were as long as her arm. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," he said. "You are here because you showed promise. But promise means nothing without proof. Tomorrow you will begin your first evaluations. Those who fail will go home." Hana felt her stomach twist with worry. She had trained hard on Earth, but she did not know if it would be enough. The Academy only accepted the best from each world. Looking around at her fellow cadets, she wondered if she really belonged here. After the orientation, Hana walked to her dormitory. Her room was small but clean. She had one roommate named Sci-Fi, who was from the Kalari species. Kalari looked like humans, but with silver skin and large black eyes. They were known for being very smart, especially with technology. Sci-Fi was unpacking when Hana entered. She looked up and studied Hana with her dark eyes. "You are the human," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," Hana replied. "I am Hana Kim." "I am Sithara," the alien girl said. "I have heard about humans. Your species is very new to the galaxy, very primitive compared to others." Hana wanted to argue, but she stayed quiet. She had been warned that many aliens looked down on humans. Earth had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. Most alien civilizations were thousands of years older. The next morning came too quickly. Hana put on her training uniform and walked to the weapons range. Her stomach felt nervous, but she tried to stay calm. She had been shooting since she was 12 years old. Her father had been a soldier and taught her well. The weapons range was huge. Targets floated at different distances and heights. Some moved back and forth. Others spun in circles. The weapons looked similar to Earth guns, but were powered by energy instead of bullets. Commander Velthos stood at the front of the group. "Today we test your basic marksmanship," he announced. "Each cadet will fire at targets from the standard position. Those who cannot hit 70% of targets will be removed from weapons training." Hana watched as other cadets took their turns. The Vorthon students stood straight and tall. They held their weapons high and fired with powerful, steady arms. Most of them hit their targets easily. The Kalari students used a different style. They crouched low and used small, precise movements. Their large eyes helped them aim very accurately. They rarely missed. Other alien species had their own methods. Some used 4 arms to steady their weapons. Others had natural targeting abilities that made shooting seem easy. Hana began to worry more with each demonstration. Finally, Commander Velthos called her name. Cadet Kim stepped forward. Hana walked to the firing line. She picked up the energy weapon and felt its weight. It was heavier than Earth weapons, but balanced well. She looked at the targets floating in front of her. Then Hana did what felt natural. She spread her feet wide apart, much wider than the other cadets had done. She bent her knees and lowered her body into a crouch. She held the weapon with both hands, but her grip looked different from everyone else. Her left hand was further forward and her right elbow pointed out at an odd angle. The moment she took her position, laughter filled the range. Cadet Zektar, a large Vorthon, pointed at her and laughed loudly. "Look at the human," he called out. "What kind of stance is that? She looks like she is trying to sit down." More laughter came from the other cadets. Cythera shook her head. How did such a backward species get accepted here? She wondered aloud. Even some of the instructors smiled at Hana's strange position. Commander Velthos watched with curiosity but did not stop the mockery. He wanted to see what the human would do. Hana felt her cheeks grow hot with embarrassment. Every eye in the range was on her. Some cadets pointed and whispered to their friends. Others took pictures with their devices. But Hana did not change her position. This was how she had been taught to shoot, and this was how she would shoot. She aimed at the first target and fired. The energy bolt flew wide and missed completely. More laughter erupted from the watching cadets. Hana aimed at the second target and missed again. And again. Commander Velthos was about to call an end to the embarrassing display when he noticed something. In the shadows at the back of the range stood Master Sergeant Do-hyun Park. The old human was watching Hana with very different eyes. His weathered face was serious and his hands were clasped behind his back. Park had been quiet since arriving at the academy 6 months ago. He rarely spoke during meetings and kept to himself. Most instructors forgot he was there, but now he was paying very close attention to the young cadet who was failing so badly. Hana finished her test having hit only 3 targets out of 20. The laughter continued as she put down her weapon and stepped back. She kept her head up, but inside she felt crushed. Maybe she did not belong here after all. As the cadets began to leave the range, Park moved closer to Commander Velthos. The alien commander was writing notes about Hana's poor performance and was ready to recommend her removal from weapons training. But before he could speak, Park leaned close to his ear. The old human's voice was quiet but clear. "That is ranger training." Commander Velthos stopped writing and looked at Park with confusion. What did the old human mean? Commander Velthos stopped writing and turned to look at Master Sergeant Park. The old human stood in the shadows at the edge of the weapons range. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes were focused and serious. "What did you say?" Commander Velthos asked quietly. The other instructors were busy cleaning up the range and did not hear their conversation. Park stepped closer to the tall Vorthon commander. "That stance the girl used. It is not random or wrong. It is ranger training." Commander Velthos had heard the word ranger before but did not know what it meant. Most aliens in the galaxy knew very little about human military history. Earth was new to galactic society and humans seemed weak compared to warrior species like the Vorthons. "Explain," Commander Velthos said. He was curious now instead of dismissive. Park looked across the empty range where Hana had failed so badly just minutes before. "May I speak privately with you, Commander? This requires more explanation than I can give here." Commander Velthos nodded. He led Park to a small office behind the weapons range. The room was plain with just a desk and 2 chairs. The commander sat down and gestured for Park to do the same. "Tell me about this ranger training," Commander Velthos said. Park was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. Then he began to speak in his calm, steady voice. 40 years ago I was a young soldier on Earth," Park said. "I joined an elite unit called the Rangers. We were not the biggest or strongest soldiers, but we were trained for something different. We learned to fight anywhere under any conditions." Commander Velthos leaned forward. He had commanded troops for 20 years, but had never heard of military training like this. "Most species develop their fighting styles based on their home world," Park continued. "Vorthons are strong because your planet has heavy gravity. Kalari are precise because your world is stable and predictable. But Earth is different." Park stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the academy grounds were perfectly maintained with smooth paths and even lighting. Everything was orderly and controlled. Earth has deserts and ice caps, jungles and mountains, ocean depths and high peaks, storms that can destroy cities and quiet valleys. Our planet taught us that conditions always change. A soldier who can only fight in one environment is not really a soldier at all. Commander Velthos was beginning to understand. So Rangers learned to fight in all environments. More than that, Park said. We learned to use any environment as a weapon. In the jungle, we became invisible. In the desert, we moved like the wind. In zero gravity, we flowed like water. The stance you saw Hana use today works in all of these places. Park returned to his chair and looked directly at the commander. That wide, low stance gives stability on moving surfaces. The bent knees absorb shock from impacts or explosions. The weapon grip allows quick movement in any direction. What looks wrong to you is actually perfect for real combat. Commander Velthos thought about this. In all his years of military service, he had never considered fighting in environments that changed constantly. Vorthan battles were straightforward affairs. Two armies met on open ground and the stronger side won. But she missed most of her targets, the commander pointed out. Park smiled for the first time since their conversation began. Did she? Or did she choose to miss? This confused Commander Velthos even more. Why would a cadet choose to fail? Because Rangers are also taught strategy, Park explained. Never show your true abilities until you understand your enemy. Hana is not just here to learn. She is here to observe and evaluate. Right now she is learning about alien military thinking. She is studying weaknesses and strengths. Park paused and looked out the window again. I taught her that stance myself 3 years ago when she was still on Earth. She can put 20 shots through the same hole at twice the distance she fired today. But showing that skill now would teach her nothing about how aliens fight. Commander Velthos felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that a cadet was studying him while he thought he was studying her was unsettling. Tell me more about these Rangers, he said. Park settled back in his chair. His eyes grew distant as if looking into the past. The Rangers were created during the colony wars, he began. Human settlements were scattered across dozens of worlds. Each planet was different. Some had crushing gravity. Others had poisonous air. Some were frozen ice balls. Others burned like ovens. When war came, our enemies thought they could defeat us easily on each world. They were wrong. Rangers could fight in any condition. We turned hostile environments into advantages. Park's voice grew quieter but more intense. I remember the Battle of Titan Station. 12 Rangers held off 2,000 enemy soldiers for 72 hours. The station was damaged and spinning. Gravity changed direction every few minutes. The air was thin and filled with smoke. Perfect conditions for Ranger tactics. Commander Velthos had never heard of this battle. Most galactic military records focused on large fleet actions between major species. The enemy soldiers could only fight when their feet were on solid ground, Park continued. But Rangers learned to fight while floating, while upside down, while the world spun around them. We used the changing gravity like a weapon. We would fire from the ceiling when enemies expected us on the floor. What happened at Titan Station? Commander Velthos asked. We won, Park said simply. 12 Rangers against 2,000. By the end, the enemy was so confused they were shooting at shadows and running from empty rooms. They could not understand how we appeared and disappeared, how we could fight from impossible positions. Commander Velthos was quiet for a long moment. He was beginning to see Hana's strange stance in a completely different way. Why are you telling me this? He asked finally. Park looked directly at him. Because that girl out there is not just another cadet. She carries the knowledge of 40 years of human military evolution. Her awkward stance is the result of countless battles and hard-won lessons. She represents something your academy has never seen before. And what is that? A soldier who can adapt to anything, Park said. Your training focuses on maximizing natural advantages. Vorthans learn to use their strength. Kalari learned to use their precision. But humans learned something different. We learned to survive when we had no advantages at all. Commander Velthos stood up and walked to his desk. He picked up the evaluation form he had been writing about Hana. Her scores were terrible by academy standards. What should I do with this information? He asked. Park smiled again. Test her properly. Give her conditions that change. Give her problems that have no obvious solutions. Give her chaos and see how she responds. But do not expect her to fight like a Vorthan or aim like a Kalari. Expect her to fight like a human, Commander Velthos said. Exactly, Park replied. And Commander, when you do test her properly, I think you will be very surprised by what you see. Commander Velthos looked at the evaluation form again. Instead of writing his recommendation to remove Hana from weapons training, he crumpled up the paper and threw it away. I think it is time to design a new kind of test, he said. Park nodded and stood to leave. At the door he paused and looked back. Commander, there is one more thing you should know. What is that? Hana Kim is not the best ranger I ever trained, Park said quietly. She is good, but there are others much better. If she impresses you, then you should know that Earth has thousands more like her. And some of them are far more dangerous than anything your academy has ever seen. With that, Park left the office, leaving Commander Velthos alone with his thoughts. The Vorthan commander sat in his chair and stared out the window. Everything he thought he knew about human military capability was suddenly in question. Tomorrow he would design a test that would reveal the truth about Hana Kim and her strange shooting stance. But tonight he would research everything he could find about Earth's military history. Something told him he had been seriously underestimating humanity. 3 days passed before Commander Velthos announced the special assessment. During those days, Hana attended her regular classes and tried to ignore the whispers that followed her everywhere. Other cadets still laughed when they saw her. Some made jokes about her shooting stance. Others wondered how long before she would be sent home. Hana said nothing and showed no reaction. She ate her meals alone and studied in her room. Her roommate Sith Ara tried to be kind, but it was clear she thought Hana did not belong at the academy. Maybe you should request transfer to a different program, Sith Ara suggested one evening. The academy has excellent engineering courses. Humans might be better suited for technical work than combat. Hana looked up from her study tablet. Thank you for the suggestion, she said politely, but I am here for military training. On the 4th day, Commander Velthos called all first-year cadets to the main training facility. This building was different from the weapons range. It was massive and filled with strange equipment. Holographic projectors lined the walls. The floor could change shape and texture. Environmental controls could simulate any planetary condition. Today you will face a different kind of evaluation, Commander Velthos announced. His voice echoed through the large chamber. This is not a simple shooting test. This is combat simulation under changing conditions. The cadets looked around nervously. Most of their training so far had been basic and predictable. This sounded much more challenging. You will enter the simulation chamber in groups of 5, the commander continued. Your mission is to eliminate hostile targets while navigating through various environments. The simulation will change every 60 seconds. Gravity direction and strength will shift. Atmospheric conditions will vary. Terrain will move and reshape. Several cadets began to look worried. They had trained for combat in stable conditions on their home worlds. Fighting while the environment changed constantly was something none of them had experienced. Commander Velthos called the first group forward. 5 Vorthan cadets entered the simulation chamber with confidence. Vorthans were natural warriors, and they expected to perform well. The watching cadets could see everything through holographic displays. The simulation began in a standard gravity environment with normal air and solid ground. The Vorthan cadets moved efficiently and eliminated targets with their usual strength and precision. Then the first change occurred. Gravity suddenly shifted 90 degrees. What had been the floor became a wall. The Vorthan cadets crashed into what was now the bottom of the chamber. They struggled to reorient themselves as hostile targets appeared from new directions. The simulation continued to change. Low gravity followed by crushing high gravity. Thick fog that blocked vision, surfaces that became slippery or unstable. Each change made the Vorthans more confused and less effective. By the end of their test, the proud warrior cadets had eliminated only half their targets. They emerged from the chamber breathing heavily and looking shaken. The next group consisted of Kalari cadets. They performed better than the Vorthans because their precise nature helped them adapt more quickly to new conditions. But even they struggled when the environment changed faster than they could calculate new firing solutions. Group after group entered the simulation. Some did well for short periods, but all eventually fell behind as conditions became more chaotic. The longest any group lasted was 8 minutes before they became too disoriented to continue fighting effectively. Finally, Commander Velthos called Hana forward, along with 4 other cadets. The group included Zektar the Vorthan, who had mocked her shooting stance. Also Sith Ara, her Kalari roommate. The other 2 were cadets from species Hana had not interacted with much. As they approached the simulation chamber, Zektar sneered at Hana. "Try not to embarrass us all, human," he said. Some of us actually want to pass this test. Hana said nothing. She checked her weapon and prepared to enter the chamber. The simulation began in standard conditions just like all the previous tests. The 5 cadets spread out and began engaging targets. Zektar charged forward using his strength to overpower obstacles. Cythera found a good position and began precise shooting. Hana took her strange wide stance and began firing. But this time something was different. This time she did not miss. Her first shot eliminated a target that the others had not even seen. Her second and third shots hit moving targets while she was turning to face a new direction. By the time the first environmental change occurred, Hana had already eliminated more targets than some entire previous groups. Then, gravity shifted and everything changed. The other 4 cadets tumbled and crashed just like all the groups before them. Zektar hit the new floor hard and his weapon went flying. Cythera managed to grab onto a fixed object but lost her shooting position. But Hana flowed with the change like water. Her wide stance kept her stable as gravity pulled her in a new direction. She bent her knees and absorbed the impact. Within seconds, she was firing again from her new position. The other cadets stared in amazement. How was she still fighting when they could barely stand up? The simulation continued to change, but Hana adapted to each new condition instantly. When gravity reversed, she was ready. When the floor became slippery, she adjusted her footing. When thick fog filled the chamber, she seemed to know where targets were without seeing them. Her shooting stance flowed and changed with each environment. Sometimes wide and low for stability, sometimes compact for mobility, sometimes extended for long-range precision. It was like watching a dance where every movement had perfect purpose. Jaemin Choi and Mi-young Lee watched from outside the chamber, with growing amazement. They were the other 2 human cadets at the academy, and they were beginning to understand something important. She has been holding back. Jaemin whispered to Mi-young. All this time she has been hiding what she can really do. Mi-young nodded. But why? Why let everyone think she was terrible? They got their answer as they watched Hana in action. She was not just eliminating targets. She was studying how the alien cadets reacted to changing conditions. She was learning their weaknesses and limitations. Every stumble and confused moment was information she was storing for future use. The simulation reached its final phase. All previous groups had failed by this point. The chamber filled with smoke while gravity spun in multiple directions. Targets appeared and disappeared in random patterns. It was chaos that no cadet had been able to handle. Hana moved through it like it was normal. Her stance shifted constantly, but she never lost balance. She eliminated targets that appeared behind her without turning around. She seemed to sense attacks before they came. Zektar watched in stunned silence as the small human did things he had thought impossible. She was fighting in 3 dimensions while he could barely handle 2. She was predicting target movements while he was still trying to figure out which way was up. When the simulation ended, Hana had eliminated every single target. Her 4 teammates had managed to eliminate only a handful between them. The watching cadets were completely silent. Commander Velthos looked at the results with satisfaction. Master Sergeant Park had been right. When tested properly, the human cadet was not weak or clumsy. She was something completely different from anything the Academy had ever seen. Hana emerged from the simulation chamber breathing normally and showing no signs of stress. The other 4 cadets stumbled out looking exhausted and confused. How? Zektar asked. How did you do that? Hana looked at the big Vorthon cadet who had mocked her just an hour before. I trained for it, she said simply. Commander Velthos stepped forward. Cadet Kim, that was an exceptional performance. You eliminated 100% of targets under conditions that caused all other groups to fail. Hana nodded respectfully. Thank you, Commander. Tell me, Commander Velthos continued, was this performance representative of your true abilities? Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she answered honestly, no, sir. This was basic level for Ranger training. The real tests are much harder. The silence that followed this statement was complete. Every cadet and instructor in the chamber stared at Hana with new understanding. She had just dominated the most difficult test the Academy could create and called it basic level. Commander Velthos realized that Master Sergeant Park had been completely right. They had been seriously underestimating not just Hana, but all of humanity. If this was basic level, then what could advanced human soldiers accomplish? That night word spread throughout the Academy about the human cadet who had mastered the impossible simulation. The laughter and mockery stopped. Instead, cadets looked at Hana with curiosity and something that might have been respect. But Hana knew this was just the beginning. She had shown a small fraction of her abilities, and already it had changed how others saw her. Soon she would need to decide how much more to reveal and when. The real test was not the simulation chamber. The real test was what came next. That evening, Commander Velthos walked to Master Sergeant Park's quarters. The old human lived in a small room near the instructor housing. The commander had many questions, and he knew Park was the only one who could answer them. Park opened the door before Velthos could knock. "I wondered when you would come," he said quietly. "Please sit down, Commander." The room was simple and clean. A few books sat on a small shelf. Pictures of Earth landscapes hung on the walls. One showed a frozen mountain peak. Another displayed a thick green jungle. A third captured a vast desert under twin suns. "Tell me the truth about human military capability," Commander Velthos said without introduction. "What I saw today changes everything I thought I knew." Park sat across from the commander and was quiet for a moment. Then he began to speak in his calm, steady voice. "Most alien species developed on worlds that were stable and predictable," Park said. "Your home planet Vorth has strong gravity and dry climate everywhere. The Kalari homeworld has perfect weather and stable conditions. Each species adapted to their environment and built military doctrine around those adaptations." Commander Velthos nodded. This matched what he knew about galactic military history. "But Earth was different," Park continued. "Our planet was chaos. Ice ages followed by warming periods, massive storms that could flatten continents, earthquakes that split the ground, volcanoes that changed the sky, floods and droughts and hurricanes." Park stood and walked to one of the pictures on his wall. It showed a human settlement on a world with 3 moons visible in a purple sky. "When humans first left Earth, we found more chaos," he said. "Colony worlds with crushing gravity, planets where the air would kill you in minutes, moons with no atmosphere at all, worlds that burned during the day and froze at night. Other species avoided such places or used technology to make them comfortable," Park explained. "But humans had learned something different on Earth. We learned to adapt our bodies and minds to any condition. We learned to make hostile environments into homes." Commander Velthos thought about this. "So humans developed different military training because you had to survive in many different places." "More than survive," Park said. "We learned to fight in those places. We learned that changing conditions could be weapons if you knew how to use them." Park returned to his chair and his eyes grew distant as if looking into the past. "I was 19 when the colony wars began," he said. "The hegemony thought they could easily conquer human settlements. We were small and scattered. Our technology was basic compared to theirs. They expected quick victories." Commander Velthos had heard mentions of these wars, but the galactic databases contained little information about them. Most alien governments did not consider human conflicts important enough to study. "The first battles went badly for us," Park admitted. "When we fought on open ground using standard tactics, we lost every time. The enemy had better weapons and more soldiers. It looked like humanity would be wiped out before we really began." Park paused and looked directly at Commander Velthos. "But then something changed. Human commanders stopped trying to fight like other species. Instead, we began to fight like humans." "What does that mean?" the commander asked. "It means we stopped looking for fair fights," Park said. "We stopped trying to meet the enemy on equal terms. Instead, we chose when and where and how every battle would happen. We made the environment our ally." Park stood again and walked to another picture. This one showed soldiers in strange armor moving through what looked like a gas cloud. "The Battle of Corvani Colony," he said, pointing to the image. "The hegemony sent 5,000 troops to capture our mining settlement. We had 300 defenders. By standard military thinking, we should have surrendered immediately. But you did not," Commander Velthos guessed. "No. Instead, we studied the planet. Corvani had toxic storms that came every 12 hours. The poison gas would kill anyone without proper protection. The hegemony troops had basic environmental suits, but nothing designed for long exposure." Park's voice grew more intense as he continued the story. "We let them land during clear weather. We let them set up their base camp in the valley where our main settlement was located. We even let them capture some of our outer buildings. They thought victory was certain. Then the storm came." Commander Velthos found himself leaning forward as Park continued. "Human rangers had been living on Corvani for 2 years. We knew how to move during the toxic storms. We had learned to use the poison clouds for concealment. Our equipment was designed to work in conditions that would kill most species. The hegemony troops huddled in their buildings waiting for the storm to pass. But we moved through the poison like ghosts. We appeared inside their perimeter without warning. We struck from impossible directions and vanished back into the toxic clouds. Park sat down again and his voice became quiet. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, we had captured 4,000 enemy soldiers and destroyed their entire supply base. The cost to us was 12 wounded and 0 dead. Commander Velthos was stunned. How is that possible? Because we fought as humans, Park said simply. We used the environment as a weapon. We turned hostile conditions into advantages. We made the enemy fight on our terms instead of theirs. Park reached into his desk and pulled out a datapad. He handed it to Commander Velthos. These are records from the colony wars. Battles where small numbers of human rangers defeated much larger conventional forces. Read them and you will understand what your academy witnessed today. Commander Velthos looked at the datapad. The files contained dozens of battle reports. Humans fighting in zero gravity. Humans fighting underwater. Humans fighting on worlds with crushing gravity or poisonous air. In every case, small ranger units had defeated larger enemy forces by using environmental conditions. This is why Hana's shooting stance works, Park explained. It was developed through 50 years of combat in every possible condition. Every position and grip and movement was tested in real battles where failure meant death. The stance you saw her use today can be modified for any gravity condition, any atmospheric density, any ground surface. It works in zero gravity and it works under crushing weight. It works when you are upside down and it works when the world is spinning around you. Commander Velthos set down the datapad and looked at Park with new understanding. You are not just a retired soldier, are you? Park smiled slightly. I was the primary developer of Ranger Adaptive Combat Doctrine. I wrote the training manuals that Hana learned from. I designed the tests that she passed to become a ranger. And there are more like her on Earth. Thousands, Park confirmed. Hana is good, but she is not exceptional by ranger standards. She is what we would call a solid basic graduate. There are rangers who could do things that would seem like magic to most galactic military commanders. Commander Velthos felt a chill run down his spine. If Hana was just a basic ranger, then what could advanced human soldiers accomplish? Why are you telling me this? He asked. Park was quiet for a long moment before answering. Because the galaxy is about to change, Commander. New threats are emerging from beyond the outer rim. The old ways of fighting will not be enough to stop what is coming. What kind of threats? The kind that require adaptive thinking instead of rigid doctrine. The kind that require soldiers who can fight anywhere under any conditions. The kind that require rangers. Park leaned forward and his voice became urgent. Your academy trains excellent specialists, Commander. Forthans who fight with great strength. Kalari who shoot with perfect precision. But specialists can only fight in their ideal conditions. What happens when those conditions do not exist? What happens when the enemy controls when and where battles occur? What happens when you need soldiers who can adapt to anything? Commander Velthos understood now why Park had revealed the truth about Hana's abilities. The galaxy needed to learn about human adaptive combat techniques before it was too late. What do you want me to do? He asked. Test her further, Park said. Push her to show more of what rangers can do. Let other cadets learn from her methods. Begin to understand that there is more than one way to be a warrior. Commander Velthos stood to leave. At the door, he turned back to Park. How much more can she show us? Park's smile was not entirely reassuring. Commander, you have not even seen her begin to try yet. What happened today was Hana being careful not to show too much too quickly. When she stops holding back, you will understand why Rangers have never lost a war. As Commander Velthos walked back to his quarters, he realized everything about military training would need to change. The academy had been preparing students to fight the last war when they should have been preparing for the next one. Tomorrow he would begin designing new tests. Tests that would reveal the full scope of human military capability. Tests that would prepare the galaxy for whatever threats were coming from the dark spaces between the stars. But tonight, he would study the battle reports that Park had given him. Tonight he would learn what it really meant to fight like a human. 2 weeks after Hana's demonstration in the simulation chamber, Commander Velthos made an announcement that shocked the entire academy. The annual Crucible Challenge would begin 1 month early and with new rules. The Crucible was the academy's most feared test. It was a month-long survival and combat exercise that took place across 7 different planetary environments. Most cadets did not face the Crucible until their 3rd year. Many who attempted it failed and left the academy. This year we will test mixed species teams, Commander Veltos announced to the assembled first-year cadets. You will learn to work with beings completely different from yourselves. You will face challenges that cannot be solved by any single species alone. The cadets looked around nervously. Working with their own kind was difficult enough. Working with aliens whose thinking and abilities were completely different seemed almost impossible. Commander Velthos began reading team assignments. Hannah listened as names were called and teams formed. Most groups seemed carefully balanced with cadets from compatible species. Team 7, Commander Velthos called. Cadet Hannah Kim Human. Cadet Zektar Vortan. Cadet Sith Arakalari. Cadet Kumin Song Human. Cadet Velkari Insectoid. Hannah felt her stomach drop. This was clearly not a balanced team. Zektar still resented her success in the simulation. Sithara was friendly but doubted human capabilities. Kumin was another human cadet, but they had barely spoken. Velkari was from a species that communicated mostly through chemical signals that other beings could not understand. After the announcement, Zektar approached Hannah with obvious anger. "This is your fault, human," he said. "The commanders are using us to test your strange abilities. When we fail, it will be because they gave us an impossible team." Sithara joined them looking worried. "Zektar is right. Our team makes no sense. We have no natural advantages and too many communication problems." Hannah said nothing. She suspected Commander Veltos had designed this team specifically to test how Rangers worked with reluctant allies. It was exactly the kind of challenge human soldiers faced during the colony wars. Kumin Song approached the group. He was tall for a human with quiet manner and careful eyes. "We need to talk," he said simply. "All of us together." The 5 team members found a quiet corner of the academy grounds. Velkari skittered along on 6 legs while releasing chemical signals that smelled like flowers and metal. The other team members could not interpret the sense, but they seemed friendly. "We have 3 weeks to prepare for the Crucible," Kumin said. "We can spend that time complaining about our team, or we can use it to become stronger." Zektar snorted. "What can humans possibly teach Vorthon warriors about combat?" Hannah looked at the big alien cadet. "Would you like to find out?" Something in her tone made Zektar pause. Since the simulation test, he had been uncertain about human capabilities. The small girl had done things he thought impossible. "Show me," he said. Hannah led the team to an empty training room. She picked up a practice weapon and assumed her familiar wide stance. But this time she did something different. She began to move. What the team saw was unlike any combat training they had witnessed. Hannah flowed from position to position like water. Her stance changed constantly, but every movement had purpose. She demonstrated fighting while lying down, while hanging upside down, while spinning in circles. "This is basic ranger movement," she explained while continuing to demonstrate. "Every position can become a fighting stance. Every surface can provide cover or advantage. Every environment can be used as a weapon." Sithara watched with growing amazement. "How do you maintain accuracy while moving like that?" "Practice," Hannah said simply. "Rangers train in every possible condition until adaptation becomes automatic." Kumin stepped forward. "My turn," he said quietly. To everyone's surprise, Kumin began moving in a completely different style. Where Hannah was fluid like water, he was solid like stone. His movements were minimal but perfectly timed. He demonstrated how to use minimal energy for maximum effect. Kumin specializes in defensive tactics, Hannah explained. Rangers learn different specialties but all share the same basic principles. Zektar was becoming interested despite himself. "What principles?" "Adapt to any condition. Use environment as advantage. Never fight fair if you can avoid it. Work with whatever allies you have," Hannah replied. Over the following days, the team began training together. Hannah and Kumin taught the others basic adaptive techniques. Zektar learned to use his strength in new ways. Sethera discovered how to maintain precision while moving. Even Velkari began incorporating human movement concepts into insectoid combat styles. But more importantly, they learned to communicate. Velkari taught the others to interpret basic chemical signals. Zektar shared Vorthan tactical knowledge. Scythara showed them Kalari technology tricks. The humans demonstrated how to combine different approaches into unified tactics. When the Crucible began, Team 7 was ready. The first environment was a swamp world with thick mud and poisonous plants. Most teams struggled with the difficult terrain and dangerous wildlife. Team 7 moved through it like they belonged there. Hana led them along safe paths while Velkari used chemical senses to detect dangerous areas. Cumin covered their retreat while Zektar used his strength to clear obstacles. Scythera coordinated their movements with precise timing. The second environment was an ice planet with crushing cold and unstable ground. Again, most teams suffered badly. Team 7 adapted their techniques to the new conditions and continued to advance. Environment after environment, they faced new challenges. Desert worlds with blinding sandstorms, high-gravity asteroids where movement was exhausting, zero-gravity space stations where direction meant nothing, underground complexes filled with dangerous machinery. Each new environment tested them in different ways, but each time Team 7 found ways to adapt and overcome. Hana's fluid movement worked in any gravity. Cumin's defensive skills protected them from environmental hazards. Zektar's strength moved obstacles that blocked other teams. Sithara's precision helped them navigate complex challenges. Velkari's chemical senses detected dangers others missed. More importantly, they began fighting as a unit instead of 5 individuals. They learned to cover each other's weaknesses and combine their strengths. They developed their own communication methods that worked even when separated. Other teams watched in amazement as Team 7 succeeded where others failed. The combination of human adaptability with alien specialization created something new and powerful. The fourth environment was the turning point, an asteroid field filled with ancient mining equipment that had been converted into a combat maze, multiple levels connected by moving platforms and dangerous machinery. Gravity shifted randomly and debris created constantly changing obstacles. Most teams became lost within hours. The few who found their way through took days to complete the course. Team 7 finished in 6 hours and eliminated every target they encountered. How did they do that? Commander Velthos asked Master Sergeant Park as they watched the team's performance. They stopped thinking like separate species, Park replied. They started thinking like rangers. By the 5th environment, other teams were struggling just to survive. Team 7 was not just surviving but excelling. They had learned to see every challenge as an opportunity. Every obstacle became a tactical advantage. Every environmental hazard became a weapon they could use. The 6th environment was designed to be impossible. A space station that was actively breaking apart while enemy forces attacked from multiple directions. Teams were expected to survive for 12 hours and eliminate 50% of targets. Team 7 eliminated 90% of targets in 8 hours and actually improved the space station's structural integrity while they were there. Commander, Felthos realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. Not just human potential, but the possibility of combining human adaptability with alien specializations to create super-effective mixed-species military units. The 7th and final environment would test whether Team 7 could maintain their cooperation under maximum stress. It was the most challenging scenario the Academy had ever created. But as Hana led her team into the final challenge, she was confident they would succeed. They were no longer 5 separate cadets from different species. They had become something new. They had become rangers. The 7th environment was designed to break even the strongest teams. It was called the Nexus Complex, a massive facility that combined every possible challenge into one nightmare scenario. Multiple gravity zones shifted without warning. Toxic atmosphere required sealed suits. Enemy forces attacked from all directions while the facility itself tried to kill anyone inside. Team 7 stood at the entrance, looking at the twisted metal structure ahead of them. Other teams had entered over the past day. None had completed the full course. 3 teams had been evacuated due to injuries. 2 more had simply given up and quit. Remember what we learned, Hana said quietly to her teammates. Adapt to conditions. Use environment as weapon. Fight as one unit. Zektar nodded grimly. The proud Vorthon warrior had changed greatly during the Crucible. He no longer saw teamwork as weakness. We go in together. We come out together. Sithara checked her equipment one final time. The precise Kalari had learned to value human unpredictability over perfect planning. All systems ready. Velkari confirms air is toxic beyond the first chamber. Velkari released a complex pattern of chemical signals that the team had learned to interpret. The insectoid was detecting multiple threats ahead, including some the facility sensors had not registered. Cumin spoke last. His quiet manner had become the team's calm center during chaotic moments. Trust your training. Trust each other. We have this. Team 7 entered the Nexus complex. The first chamber seemed normal until gravity suddenly reversed. Most teams would have crashed into the ceiling and lost precious time getting oriented. Team 7 flowed with the change like they had trained for months. Hana used her adaptive stance to land smoothly on what was now the floor. Zektar used his strength to catch equipment that fell during the gravity shift. Cythera quickly recalibrated their navigation system. Cumin covered their formation while Velkari detected new chemical traces in the air. They moved deeper into the complex as a perfect unit. The second chamber filled with thick smoke that blocked all vision. Emergency alarms screamed while automated defenses fired randomly through the darkness. Most teams would have panicked or retreated. Team 7 had trained for exactly this scenario. Velkari led them through the smoke using chemical senses that were not affected by visual interference. Hana and Cumin provided cover using sound and air movement to track threats they could not see. Zektar moved heavy obstacles while Cythera used instruments to map safe paths. They emerged from the smoke chamber ahead of schedule and with 0 injuries. Word of their progress reached the Academy's command center where every senior instructor was watching. The Nexus complex had been designed to challenge third-year cadets. First-year students were expected to fail quickly and learn from the experience. But Team 7 was not just surviving. They were excelling. Impossible, muttered Instructor Vorkan, a veteran Kalari officer. No first-year team has ever passed the third chamber. Commander Velthos watched the displays with growing excitement. They are not fighting like first-year cadets. They are fighting like seasoned special forces. Master Sergeant Park stood quietly in the corner observing everything. He was not surprised by Team 7's performance. He was proud but not surprised. The third chamber was where most teams failed completely. It required split-second coordination while under attack from 6 different directions simultaneously. Gravity spun wildly while poisonous gas leaked from damaged systems. Emergency lighting flickered on and off, making visibility nearly impossible. Team 7 entered the chaos and immediately separated into a formation they had developed during training. Instead of staying together like most teams, they spread out to cover more ground while maintaining communication. Hana took point using her mobility to draw fire and identify threats. Zektar anchored their formation, providing heavy firepower and protection. Cythera coordinated from a central position using technology to track everything. Cumin moved between positions, plugging gaps and providing support wherever needed. Velkari ranged widely using chemical senses to detect hidden dangers. They moved through the chamber like a machine designed specifically for chaos. Every action supported their teammates. Every movement served multiple purposes. They eliminated threats while advancing toward their objective while protecting each other from environmental hazards. The watching instructors fell silent as Team 7 completed the third chamber in record time with perfect scores. How are they doing this? Demanded Admiral Carthon, who had arrived to observe personally. As Supreme Commander of Galactic Military Forces, he had seen elite units from every species. What he was watching exceeded anything in his experience. They learned to fight like humans, Master Sergeant Park said quietly. But more than that, they learned to combine human methods with their own natural abilities. They created something new. Admiral Carthon turned to study the old human sergeant. Explain. Humans adapt to any condition, Park said. But we are not the strongest or fastest or most precise species. We succeed by working with whatever resources we have available. That includes working with aliens whose abilities complement our own. Park gestured toward the displays showing Team 7's progress. What you are seeing is the future of galactic military doctrine. Mixed species units trained in adaptive tactics, combining the best of every species into teams that are stronger than any single group could be. Admiral Carthon was beginning to understand why human cadets had been admitted to the Academy. It was not charity or politics. It was strategic necessity. The fourth chamber tested Team 7's limits. Anti-gravity fields made movement almost impossible, while automated turrets tracked their every step. The air itself was electrified, making any metal contact dangerous. Most teams would have been eliminated within minutes. Team 7 adapted their tactics again. They moved using only non-metal surfaces. They used the anti-gravity fields to reach positions that ground-based defenders could not target. They turned the electrical field into a weapon by directing it toward enemy systems. By the time they reached the fifth chamber, spectators were gathering throughout the academy. Students and instructors crowded around displays to watch the impossible team complete challenges that were supposed to be beyond their abilities. "This changes everything," Admiral Carthon said to Commander Velthos. "If first-year mixed-species teams can perform at this level, what could we accomplish with fully trained units?" The fifth chamber was meant to be the breaking point. It combined every previous challenge into one final test: shifting gravity, toxic atmosphere, limited visibility, multiple attackers, environmental hazards, equipment failures, communication interference. Team 7 entered the final chamber as confidently as they had entered the first. They moved through the ultimate challenge like veterans who had been fighting together for years instead of cadets who had met just weeks before. Every lesson learned during the crucible came together in perfect coordination. Hana flowed between impossible positions using every surface as a fighting platform. Zektar provided unstoppable firepower while protecting his teammates from harm. Sathera maintained perfect tactical coordination despite communication interference. Cumin appeared wherever he was needed, most providing exactly the right support at exactly the right moment. Velkari detected threats and opportunities that no one else could sense. When they emerged from the Nexus complex, they had achieved something unprecedented. Perfect scores in all categories, record completion time, 0 injuries. Every objective accomplished. The Academy fell silent as Team 7 walked calmly out of the facility that had broken so many others. Admiral Carthon approached them personally. "Cadets, you have just demonstrated capabilities that will change galactic military doctrine forever. What you accomplished today will be studied for generations." Hana stood at attention with her teammates. "Thank you, Admiral. We were just applying our training." "Your training," Admiral Carthon repeated. He looked at Master Sergeant Park, who nodded slightly. "I think it is time the galaxy learned more about human training methods." That evening, news of Team 7's achievements spread throughout the galactic military network. Videos of their performance were analyzed by tactical experts on dozens of worlds. Everyone wanted to understand how 5 first-year cadets had redefined what was possible. But Hana knew this was still just the beginning. The galaxy was about to discover that human ranger capabilities went far beyond what they had witnessed. And soon they would need every advantage they could get, because threats were coming that would test not just individual teams, but the entire galactic civilization. And when that day arrived, the galaxy would be very grateful that humans had finally revealed what they were truly capable of accomplishing. 6 months after Team 7's triumph in the Nexus complex, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. News of their achievement had spread to every civilized world. Military commanders from dozens of species requested detailed reports about human adaptive training methods. Admiral Carthon stood before the Galactic Defense Council on the capital, world of Nexus Prime. The massive chamber held representatives from every major species in known space. Today, they would vote on a proposal that would reshape galactic military doctrine forever: the Human Ranger Exchange Program. Admiral Carthon announced to the Assembly, "Represents our best hope for preparing against unknown threats from beyond the Outer Rim. Long-range sensors have detected massive fleet movements in dark space. Whatever is coming will require new thinking and new tactics." Representative Morkath of the Vorthon Empire stood to speak. His species had initially opposed any expansion of human military influence. "Admiral, you ask us to trust our defense to beings whose homeworld only joined galactic society 50 years ago. How can such a young species teach ancient civilizations about warfare?" Admiral Carthon activated a holographic display showing footage from the Nexus complex. "Because Representative Morkath, this young species has developed something we never achieved in 10,000 years of galactic civilization. They learn to adapt to any condition and work effectively with any ally." The display showed Team 7 moving through impossible challenges with perfect coordination. Alien representatives who had seen the footage dozens of times still watched with amazement. "Traditional military doctrine assigns roles based on species advantages," Admiral Carthon continued. "Vorthons provide strength. Kalari provide precision. Each species contributes what they do best. But humans contribute something different. They contribute adaptability." Representative Sathlon of the Kalari Collective spoke next. "Our analysis indicates human methods could improve our tactical flexibility by 40%. However, we are concerned about maintaining our technological advantages while adopting primitive techniques. Master Sergeant Park stepped forward from his position behind Admiral Carthon. At 70 years old, he had become the galaxy's foremost expert on mixed-species military cooperation. Representative Sithlon human methods are not primitive. They are evolved. We developed adaptive techniques because we had to survive in conditions that would kill most species. Park activated another display showing human settlements on hostile worlds. Humans live on planets with crushing gravity, poisonous atmosphere, and unstable geology. We fight in environments where your finest warriors would die in minutes. Our techniques work because they were tested in the harshest conditions possible. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives worried about sharing military secrets with humans. Others questioned whether adaptive tactics would work for species with fixed advantages. A few suggested that humans were too unpredictable to trust as allies. Finally, Hana Kim was called to speak. Now Lieutenant Kim, she had graduated from the academy with the highest honors in galactic history. She wore the simple gray uniform of a ranger instructor, but every being in the chamber knew her reputation. Honored representatives, Hana began in her calm, clear voice. I understand your concerns about human reliability. Many of you still see us as newcomers who do not understand galactic civilization. You wonder if we can be trusted with your defense. She paused and looked around the vast chamber, meeting the eyes of alien beings from across known space. But I ask you to consider this question. When the threats from dark space arrive, will they ask about your species' advantages before they attack? Will they give Vorthons time to use their strength or Kalari time to employ their precision? Will they fight fair according to established rules? Representative Morcath shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew the answer to those questions. The enemy will not fight on our terms, Hana continued. They will choose when and where and how battles occur. They will use every advantage, including our own rigid thinking, against us. If we meet them with traditional tactics, we will lose. Hana activated a final display showing mixed-species ranger teams in training. But if we meet them with adaptive thinking and flexible cooperation, we can turn their advantages into weaknesses. We can make their strength work against them. We can survive what they think will destroy us. The chamber fell silent as representatives considered her words. Finally, Representative Velkash of the Insectoid Collective stood to speak. Her species had been the first to embrace human training methods. The Insectoid Collective's vote to approve the Human Ranger Exchange Program, she announced. Our forces have improved dramatically since adopting adaptive techniques. We trust human leadership in preparing for unknown threats. One by one, other representatives voiced their support. The Kalari Collective approved after securing guarantees about technology sharing. The Vorthon Empire agreed reluctantly after Admiral Carthon reminded them of their military obligations. Smaller species voted enthusiastically, hoping human methods would give them advantages over larger powers. When the final vote was counted, the Human Ranger Exchange Program was approved by an overwhelming majority. 3 months later, Hana stood on the observation deck of a transport ship. Approaching Earth, she was returning home as an ambassador and instructor, but also as something more. She was proof that humans had earned their place among the galactic powers. Earth looked exactly as she remembered it from her childhood. Blue oceans and green continents under swirling white clouds. But now she saw it with different eyes. This chaotic, beautiful, dangerous planet had shaped humanity into something unique and valuable. The transport landed at the new galactic training facility built in the mountains of Korea. The Bao site had been chosen for its variety of challenging terrain and unpredictable weather. Here alien cadets would learn to think and fight like humans. Master Sergeant Park met Hana at the landing pad. The old soldier smiled as he watched her step onto Earth soil for the first time in 2 years. Welcome home, Lieutenant, he said. Are you ready to teach the galaxy what humans can do? Hana looked around at the facility where hundreds of alien cadets were struggling with basic adaptive training. Some tried to master human shooting stances. Others practiced environmental awareness techniques. A few attempted the complex teamwork exercises that came naturally to Rangers. They have a lot to learn, she observed. Yes, they do, Park agreed, but they want to learn, and that makes all the difference. Over the following weeks, Hana watched as alien cadets slowly began to understand human methods. The proud Vorthon warriors learned that strength meant nothing without adaptability. The precise Kalari discovered that perfect planning was less valuable than flexible thinking. Insectoid soldiers found that individual excellence was enhanced by team cooperation. It was difficult training. Many cadets struggled with concepts that seemed obvious to humans. Some quit and returned home. Others pushed through their frustration and gradually began to change how they thought about combat and survival. But the successful cadets achieved something remarkable. They became hybrid warriors who combined their natural advantages with human adaptability. Fortans who could use their strength in any environment. Kalari who maintained precision while adapting to changing conditions. Insectoids who fought as individuals and as team members depending on what the situation required. 6 months after the facility opened, the first class of mixed-species rangers graduated. They were not as skilled as human rangers, but they were far more capable than traditional single-species soldiers. They represented the beginning of a new kind of galactic military force. Admiral Carthon attended the graduation ceremony personally. As he watched the diverse group of graduates demonstrate their skills, he felt confident about the galaxy's future. Whatever threats emerged from dark space would face opponents unlike anything they expected. Hana stood with Master Sergeant Park watching the ceremony from the side of the parade ground. New classes of alien cadets were already arriving for training. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about the effectiveness of ranger methods. "Do you think we are ready?" Hana asked quietly. Park smiled and looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. "We are as ready as we can be, Lieutenant. And when the real test comes, I think the galaxy will be very grateful that humans finally decided to show what we are truly capable of." As if summoned by his words, an urgent message arrived from Galactic Command. Long-range sensors had detected massive energy signatures approaching from beyond the outer rim. Unknown ships were moving toward civilized space at unprecedented speeds. The real test was about to begin, but this time the galaxy would not face it alone. This time they would have rangers. Hana looked at the message and then at the graduating cadets who were celebrating their achievement. They did not know it yet, but their training was about to be tested under the harshest conditions possible. She was not worried. Rangers were made for impossible situations, and now the galaxy had rangers too.